The sound of shattering glass echoed through the 42nd floor boardroom as Harrison Blake's coffee mug hit the marble wall. His chest heaved with each ragged breath, his usually perfect silver hair disheveled, and his expensive navy suit wrinkled from clutching the fabric in frustration. This was the moment that would haunt him for weeks, the moment he realized he had become a monster in a $1,000 suit. "Get out. All of you, just get out." Harrison's voice cracked as he screamed at the empty boardroom, his hands shaking uncontrollably. The massive floor-to-ceiling windows of Blake Industries offered a stunning view of the city below, but Harrison couldn't see past the blur of tears he refused to let fall. At 35 he had built an empire worth billions, but in this moment he felt completely broken. The door clicked softly and Harrison spun around, expecting to see another terrified employee. Instead, a woman in a simple gray cleaning uniform stood in the doorway, her dark eyes taking in the scene with remarkable calm. Camila Washington had been the night cleaning supervisor for 3 months, but she had never seen the infamous CEO in person, certainly not like this. "Sir, are you all right?" Camila's voice was steady, professional, but there was genuine concern in her tone that Harrison hadn't heard in years. Harrison stared at her, confusion replacing his rage. "Who are you?" "I told everyone to leave. I'm Camila Washington, cleaning supervisor. I heard the noise and wanted to make sure no one was hurt." She stepped into the room, her movements careful but not fearful. At 28, Camila had seen enough broken people in her life to recognize the signs. "I'm fine," Harrison snapped, then immediately felt foolish. The broken mug, overturned chair, and papers scattered across the floor told a different story. Camila bent down and began picking up the larger pieces of the mug. "My grandmother always said that fine people don't usually throw their coffee at walls." Despite himself, Harrison felt his shoulders relax slightly. "Your grandmother sounds wise." She was. "She also taught me that everyone needs someone to talk to when they're hurting." Camila continued cleaning, her movements efficient and practiced. "You want to tell me what happened here?" Harrison watched her work, stunned by her boldness. "You don't know who I am, do you? You're Harrison Blake, CEO of Blake Industries, worth about $8 billion according to Forbes, and apparently having the worst day of your life." Camila looked up at him with a small smile. "Does knowing your net worth make you feel better right now?" For the first time in months, Harrison almost smiled. "Not particularly." "Didn't think so." Camila stood up, holding the broken pieces carefully. "So what really happened? And don't tell me it's just work stress. I've seen work stress. This looks like something deeper." Harrison sank into his leather chair, suddenly feeling exhausted. "I fired another assistant today. The 4th one this month. She started crying and I kept going. I said terrible things." He looked at his hands. "My mother would have been ashamed of me." "Would have been." Camila's voice was gentle. "She died 5 years ago. Cancer." Harrison's voice was barely above a whisper. "She always said I had a good heart. I don't think she'd recognize me now." Camila set the broken pieces on the conference table and pulled out a chair across from Harrison. "Mind if I sit? These shoes are killing me." Harrison nodded, surprised by how natural this felt. "You're not afraid of me." "Should I be?" Camila studied his face. "You seem more hurt than dangerous to me. Most people are terrified of me. I have a reputation for being—" Harrison paused. "A complete nightmare to work for?" Camila finished. "Yeah, I've heard the stories. Janitors talk, you know. We hear everything." Harrison winced. "What do they say?" "That you go through assistants like tissues. That you never say please or thank you. That you once made an intern cry because she brought you the wrong kind of coffee." Camila's tone wasn't judgmental, just matter of fact. "But they also say you work 18-hour days and that you've never missed a payroll, even during the rough years." "The rough years nearly destroyed everything my father built," Harrison said defensively. "Your father built this company?" "With his bare hands. Started in a garage, worked 3 jobs to keep it afloat. He died expecting me to carry on his legacy." Harrison's jaw tightened. "I can't let him down." Camila leaned back in her chair. "Let me ask you something, Mr. Blake. Do you think your father would be proud of the way you treat people?" The question hit Harrison like a physical blow. He was tough. Business is tough. There's a difference between being tough and being cruel." Camila's voice remained gentle but firm. "I've had tough bosses. I've also had cruel ones. Guess which ones got better work from their employees?" Harrison was quiet for a long moment. "How do you do it?" "Do what?" "Talk to me like this. Like I'm just a person. Everyone else either kisses up to me or runs away terrified." Camila shrugged. Maybe because I don't need anything from you. I'm not trying to climb any corporate ladder or impress anyone. I just see someone who's hurting and making other people hurt because of it. And that doesn't scare you? My father was an angry man, Camila said quietly. Drank too much, yelled too much, blamed everyone else for his problems. I learned early that angry people are usually just scared people who don't know how to ask for help. Harrison stared at her. What happened to him? He got help. Took years, but he figured out that pushing everyone away wasn't protecting him, it was killing him slowly. Camila stood up. I should let you get back to your evening. But Mr. Blake? Yes. That assistant you fired today? She was probably just trying to do her best. Maybe consider that before you hire the next one. As Camila headed toward the door, Harrison called out, Wait. What's your story? How did you end up cleaning offices at night? Camila turned back. Same way most people end up anywhere. Life happened. But I'm working on changing that. How? Night school. Business degree. I want to open a community center in my neighborhood someday. Give kids a safe place to go after school, help adults learn job skills. She smiled. Big dreams for a cleaning lady, right? Not at all, Harrison said and meant it. Those sound like exactly the kind of dreams that matter. After Camila left, Harrison sat alone in his boardroom for another hour, staring at the city lights below. For the first time in years, he thought about his mother's voice, her gentle corrections when he was unkind, her belief that he could be better than his worst moments. He picked up his phone and scrolled to his assistant's contact, his former assistant. He corrected himself. His finger hovered over the call button for several minutes before he finally pressed it. Hello, came a tentative voice. Jessica? It's Harrison Blake. I owe you an apology. 3 days after the boardroom incident, Harrison Blake walked into his office to find his coffee already waiting, perfectly prepared, exactly how he liked it. His calendar was organized, his messages prioritized, and his morning briefing laid out with color-coded tabs. For a moment he forgot he didn't have an assistant anymore. Good morning, Mr. Blake. Camila's voice came from behind his desk where she was adjusting the flowers in his office plant. Harrison stopped short. What are you doing in here? Temporary assistant duties. Mr. Peterson from HR asked me to cover until you hire someone new. Camila straightened up, meeting his eyes directly. Apparently, word got out about yesterday's interview process. Harrison winced. He had interviewed 6 candidates the day before, and each interview had gone worse than the last. His patience had worn thin by the 3rd candidate, and by the 6th he was practically interrogating them like hostile witnesses. I suppose the rumor mill is having a field day, Harrison muttered, settling into his chair. Let's just say applications for your assistant position have dropped significantly. Camila placed a folder on his desk. These are your appointments for today. I've rescheduled the 9 a.m. with the Morrison Group because their traffic situation, moved your lunch meeting to 1:30 to give you time to actually eat something, and canceled the 4 p.m. conference call because it was scheduled during your standing meeting with the department heads. Harrison stared at the folder. You did all this since yesterday? I also called Jessica Martinez, your former assistant, and asked for her notes on your preferences and schedule. She was very helpful. Camila's tone was neutral, but Harrison caught the slight emphasis on former. You talked to Jessica? Someone had to. You left her hanging for 3 days without any transition notes or information about ongoing projects. Camila pulled out a chair and sat down across from his desk without being invited. She was very professional about it, by the way. More professional than you deserved. Harrison's first instinct was to snap back, to remind this woman exactly who she was talking to. Instead, he found himself asking, what did she say? That you're brilliant at what you do, that you care more about this company than anyone realizes, and that working for you is like walking through a minefield blindfolded. Camila opened a notepad. She also said she'd recommend you to other potential assistants if you learned to say please and thank you occasionally. I'm not that bad, Harrison protested. Yesterday you told a candidate that her previous work experience was laughably inadequate, and asked if she was sure she could handle real work. Camila read from her notes. She has a master's degree and 5 years of experience with a Fortune 500 company. Harrison felt heat rise in his cheeks. She seemed unprepared for the scope of the position. She seemed nervous because you started the interview by telling her that most people couldn't last a week working for you. Camila closed her notepad and looked at him directly. Mr. Blake, can I ask you something? You're going to anyway, aren't you? When was the last time you interviewed someone without trying to prove they weren't good enough for the job? The question caught Harrison off guard. I need to know they can handle the pressure. Or maybe you're trying to make sure they reject you before you have a chance to depend on them. Camilla's voice was gentle but pointed. It's easier to be alone when you convince yourself it's because no one else can measure up to your standards. Harrison stood up abruptly, walking to his window. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Camilla remained seated, calm. You've had 12 assistants in the past 2 years. All highly qualified, all eager to work for Blake Industries. What's the common factor in all those failures? They couldn't handle the workload, Harrison said without turning around. Jessica worked 60-hour weeks without complaint. Sarah managed your entire calendar, coordinated with 6 different departments, and never missed a deadline. Patricia reorganized your entire filing system and increased your efficiency by 30%. Camilla's voice grew firmer. They didn't fail, Mr. Blake. You pushed them away. Harrison spun around. You have some nerve talking to me like this. You're a cleaning lady who's been here 3 months. You're right, Camilla said, standing up. I'm a cleaning lady. I make $12 an hour, I take night classes after working 10-hour shifts, and I live in a 1-bedroom apartment with my sister and her baby. But you know what I'm not? What? I'm not afraid of you. Camilla stepped closer to his desk. And I'm not impressed by your money or your title or your ability to make people cry. I've seen what real power looks like, and it doesn't need to tear other people down to build itself up. Harrison stared at her, his usual arsenal of cutting remarks failing him completely. Here's what's going to happen, Camilla continued. I'm going to be your assistant for the next 2 weeks while HR finds qualified candidates. During that time, you're going to treat me with basic human respect. You're going to say please when you want something and thank you when you get it. You're going to remember that I'm a person, not a machine. And if I don't? Harrison asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Then I'll quit just like all the others. But before I do, I'll make sure everyone in this building knows exactly why they shouldn't waste their time applying for this position. Camilla picked up her notepad. Your first meeting is in 15 minutes. They'll be here to discuss the quarterly projections. Do you need me to brief you on the attendees? Harrison was quiet for a long moment, studying this woman who had just completely dismantled his authority and somehow made him feel grateful for it. Yes, he said finally. Please. A small smile crossed Camilla's face. Thank you for asking nicely. I'll be right back with the files. As she left his office, Harrison sank back into his chair, his mind racing. In 35 years, no one had ever spoken to him the way Camilla just had. His father had taught him that respect came from fear, that leadership meant never showing weakness. But sitting here now, he realized that what he felt wasn't anger or humiliation. It was relief. For the first time in years, someone had seen through all his defenses and called him on his behavior not to hurt him, but to help him. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. When Camilla returned with the briefing files, she found Harrison standing by his window again, but his posture was different. Less rigid, more thoughtful. Mr. Blake? The files you requested. He turned around, and Camilla was surprised to see something new in his expression. It wasn't quite vulnerability, but it wasn't the cold mask he usually wore either. Camilla, he said quietly. Thank you. For this morning, for yesterday, for not giving up on me. She nodded. Everyone deserves a chance to be better than their worst moment, Mr. Blake. Even you. By Friday of the first week, Harrison Blake's office had been transformed. Not physically, the same mahogany desk, leather chairs, and floor-to-ceiling windows remained, but the atmosphere was entirely different. For the first time in months, Harrison arrived at work without the familiar knot of dread in his stomach. Good morning, Mr. Blake, Camilla called from her temporary desk outside his office. Your coffee is ready, and I've prioritized your messages by urgency. The red folder needs immediate attention, yellow can wait until this afternoon, and green is for Monday. Harrison paused in his doorway. You color-coded my messages? Jessica's system. She left very detailed notes about your preferences. Camilla looked up from her computer. She also mentioned you prefer your morning briefings delivered with coffee, not before. She was very observant, Harrison admitted, accepting the coffee gratefully. It was perfect as always. She was an excellent assistant. Which makes me wonder why you convinced yourself she wasn't. Harrison settled into his chair, but instead of immediately diving into work as usual, he found himself studying Camilla through his office doorway. She worked with quiet efficiency, fielding phone calls with a warm professionalism that somehow never compromised her authority. Watching her, he began to understand something important. Camilla, could you come in here for a moment? She appeared in his doorway with a notepad, ready for dictation or instructions. "Sit down," Harrison said. "Please." Camila raised an eyebrow at the courtesy but took her usual chair across from his desk. "I've been thinking about what you said. About me pushing people away." Harrison set down his coffee and leaned back. "You might be right." "Might be. Probably are," he corrected with a small smile. "The thing is, I don't know how to be different. This is how I've always operated." "Since when?" Harrison was quiet for a moment. "Since my father died, I think. He was demanding. Expected perfection. I guess I learned that caring about people meant setting yourself up for disappointment." "Or," Camila said gently, "maybe you learned that caring about people means they matter enough to invest in their success instead of expecting them to fail." "How do you do that? I mean, practically speaking. How do I change the way I've been doing business for 15 years? Camila leaned forward. "Can I make a suggestion?" "Please. Let me help you interview the next batch of candidates. Not to make decisions for you, but to help you see them as people instead of potential problems." Harrison frowned. "You want to sit in on executive interviews? I want to help you find someone who can actually work with you long term. Someone who won't quit after 3 weeks because you've made them feel incompetent and unwanted. And you think you can do that? I think I can help you remember that the person sitting across from you wants to succeed, not fail. That they're nervous because this job matters to them, not because they're unprepared." Camila pulled out her notepad. "HR has scheduled 5 interviews for Monday. What if we prepare together?" Harrison stared at her. "You're serious?" "Completely. I've been watching how you operate for a week now. You're incredibly smart, you remember everything, and you genuinely care about this company. But you interview people like you're trying to find reasons to reject them instead of reasons to hire them. Because I can't afford to make a mistake. The wrong person in this position could what? Make a few errors while they learn your systems? Take a few weeks to understand your preferences? Be human?" Camila's voice was gentle but firm. "Mr. Blake, what's the worst thing that could happen if you hired someone and they needed time to adjust?" Harrison opened his mouth to list all the potential disasters, then stopped. I suppose we could work through any problems." "Exactly. But you'll never know if someone is right for the job if you don't give them a real chance to show you what they can do. So what are you proposing? Let me help you practice. We'll go through common interview questions and I'll help you focus on learning about the candidates instead of testing them." Camila smiled. "Think of it as media training but for being a decent human being." Despite himself, Harrison laughed. "You really don't pull your punches, do you? Would you prefer I did?" "No," Harrison said, surprising himself with his certainty. "No, I wouldn't." They spent the next hour going through interview techniques. Camila role-played as various types of candidates while Harrison practiced asking questions designed to learn rather than intimidate. It was harder than he expected. "Try that again," Camila said after his third attempt at asking about a candidate's previous experience. "This time, imagine you actually want to know about their background because you're curious about how their skills might benefit the company. Instead of looking for reasons they're not qualified?" "Exactly." Harrison tried again, and this time his question came out warmer, more conversational. "Better?" "Much better. You sounded like you were talking to a person instead of conducting an interrogation." "It feels strange," Harrison admitted. "More vulnerable somehow. Because you're opening yourself up to the possibility that they might actually be good at the job. That you might like them. That they might leave anyway despite your best efforts." Harrison was quiet for a moment. "You see right through me, don't you? I see someone who's been hurt and decided it was safer to expect the worst from people." Camila closed her notepad. "But expecting the worst is just another way of ensuring you get it. What if I try this new approach and it doesn't work? What if I hire someone and they leave anyway? Then you'll have treated them well while they were here, and they'll leave with respect for you instead of relief to be away from you." Camila stood up. "And maybe they'll recommend Blake Industries to other qualified people instead of warning them away." Harrison nodded slowly. "You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's just different. And different is scary when you've been doing the same thing for so long that you've forgotten there are other ways to be." As Camila reached the door, Harrison called out, "Wait. Can I ask you something personal?" She turned back. "Sure. Why are you helping me? Really? You don't owe me anything. In fact, given how I've treated your colleagues over the years, you have every reason to want to see me fail." Camila considered the question for a moment. "Because I think you're better than your worst moments, and because everyone deserves a chance to prove that. Even you. And if you're wrong? If I can't change? Then at least I'll know I tried. But I don't think I'm wrong, Mr. Blake. I think you're just scared of finding out how good you could be if you stopped protecting yourself from caring about people." After she left, Harrison sat in his office for a long time, staring at the color-coded folders on his desk. For the first time in years, he found himself looking forward to Monday morning instead of dreading it. Monday morning's interviews were a revelation. Harrison, with Camila's gentle guidance, found himself actually enjoying the conversations with potential assistants. By the third interview, he was asking follow-up questions about candidates' interests and career goals instead of trying to trip them up with impossible scenarios. "That was incredible," said Jennifer Chin, the HR director, after the last candidate left. "Mr. Blake, I've never seen you conduct interviews like that. You seem genuinely interested in learning about each person." Harrison glanced at Camila, who gave him an encouraging nod. "I had some good coaching," he admitted. "Well, whatever changed, please keep doing it. We actually have 3 strong candidates who seem excited about the position instead of terrified by it." After Jennifer left, Harrison turned to Camila with something that might have been pride on his face. "Did you see that? 3 good candidates. All of them seem to actually want to work here. Because you treated them like people you might enjoy working with instead of adversaries you needed to defeat." Camila gathered her notes. "How did it feel? Different? Good different?" Harrison paused. "Actually, it reminded me of something my mother used to say. She always told me that you can learn something valuable from every person you meet if you're willing to listen." "Smart woman. She was. She would have liked you, I think." Harrison's voice grew softer. "She always said I inherited my father's drive but needed to remember her heart." Camila looked at him with new understanding. "What was she like?" Harrison leaned back in his chair, a genuine smile crossing his face for the first time Camila had seen. "She was a teacher. High school English. She could make Shakespeare accessible to teenagers who thought reading was punishment." He chuckled. "She met my father when he was working construction to put himself through business school. She used to tutor him in the evenings. A teacher and a businessman. That must have been an interesting combination. They balanced each other. Dad was all ambition and strategy, but Mom kept him grounded. She made sure he remembered that business success meant nothing if you lost your humanity in the process." Harrison's expression grew sad. After she died, Dad threw himself even deeper into work. I think he was trying to honor her memory by building something lasting, but he forgot the part about staying human while doing it. "And then you inherited that approach?" "I inherited his dying wish that I carry on what he built. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that Mom's influence was part of what made this company successful too." Harrison looked at Camila thoughtfully. "You remind me of her, actually. The way you see through people's defenses to who they really are." Camila felt a flutter of something she couldn't quite name. "She sounds like someone I would have admired." "Tell me about your family," Harrison said, and Camila was surprised by how genuinely interested he sounded. "My parents divorced when I was 12. Dad had addiction issues, anger problems. Mom worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat." Camila's voice was matter-of-fact, but Harrison caught the underlying pain. "I have a younger sister, Keisha. She's 25, has a 2-year-old daughter named Zoe." "The sister and baby you live with?" "Zoe's father disappeared when she was born. Keisha's working on her nursing degree, so I help with childcare and expenses." Camila smiled. "Zoe calls me Auntie Cam. She's the light of my life." "That must be difficult, supporting a family while going to school yourself." "Sometimes. But family is family. We take care of each other." Camila paused. "What about you? Any siblings?" "No, just me. Always wished I had a brother or sister, especially after Mom died. Dad was so focused on the business that we barely talked unless it was about work." "That sounds lonely." Harrison was quiet for a moment. "It was. Still is, I suppose. I spend most of my time either here or in meetings. I have business acquaintances but not many real friends." "Why not?" "Hard to trust people when you're never sure if they like you or your bank account," Harrison said with a bitter laugh. "Plus, my track record with relationships isn't exactly stellar. Turns out most people don't enjoy being criticized constantly." "Most people don't enjoy being treated like they're not good enough," Camila said gently. "But that doesn't mean you're not capable of real relationships. It just means you need to learn how to let people see the person behind the CEO. And what if they don't like what they see? Then they weren't the right people for you anyway. But you'll never know until you try." Their conversation was interrupted by Harrison's phone buzzing. He glanced at the screen and his expression immediately changed, becoming tense and guarded. "Sorry, I need to take this." He answered with a clipped, "Harrison Blake." Camila watched as Harrison's entire demeanor shifted during the call. His voice became cold and formal, his posture rigid. She could only hear his side of the conversation, but it was clear he was talking to someone who made him deeply uncomfortable. Yes, sir. I understand. No, the quarterly reports aren't ready yet. I'll have them to you by Friday. There was a long pause. No, sir. I haven't forgotten what this company means to our family. Yes, sir. I'll handle it personally. When he hung up, Harrison's hands were shaking slightly. Are you okay? Camila asked. Fine, Harrison said curtly, then caught himself. Sorry? That was difficult. Family? My father's business partner. He still owns 30% of the company and sits on the board of directors. He likes to remind me regularly that I'm not living up to my father's standards. What did he say? Harrison was quiet for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. He said I've been too soft lately. That rumors are circulating about me being overly familiar with staff. He warned me that investors are watching for any sign of weakness in leadership. Camila felt a chill. He was talking about me, wasn't he? He mentioned that board members had noticed I seemed distracted lately. That my father would never have allowed personal relationships to interfere with business decisions. And what did you tell him? I told him I'd handle it. Harrison's voice was tired. But honestly, Camila, I don't know how to handle it. I can't afford to lose the board's confidence, but I also can't go back to being the person I was before this week. Camila stood up, her expression serious. Mr. Blake, if working with me is going to cause problems for you. No, Harrison said quickly. Please don't. This past week has been the first time in years that I've actually enjoyed coming to work. You've helped me remember who I wanted to be before I got lost in all the expectations and pressure. But if it's affecting your position, then we'll figure it out together, Harrison said firmly. I'm not going back to the way things were. I can't. It was killing me slowly, and I didn't even realize it until you helped me see there was another way. Camila studied his face, seeing the determination there alongside the fear. Okay. But we need to be smart about this. If there are people watching for reasons to undermine you, we can't give them ammunition. What do you suggest? We focus on results. We show them that treating employees with respect doesn't make you weak, it makes you more effective. Camila pulled out her notepad. Starting with hiring the right assistant and proving that your new approach works better than the old one. Harrison nodded, feeling some of his anxiety ease. You think we can do that? I think we can try. But Mr. Blake? You need to decide what matters more to you: approval from people who want you to stay the same, or becoming the person you actually want to be. When you put it like that, it seems like an easy choice. The choice is easy. Living with the consequences might be harder. Camila's voice was gentle but honest. Are you ready for that? Harrison looked out his window at the city below, thinking about his mother's voice, his father's expectations, and the woman sitting across from him who had somehow changed everything in just 1 week. Yes, he said quietly. I think I am. 2 weeks into their working relationship, Camila had established a routine that felt surprisingly natural. She arrived each morning with Harrison's coffee and a summary of his day, handled his communications with a warmth that had staff members commenting on the positive change in atmosphere, and somehow managed to make even the most stressful meetings feel manageable. But it was the quiet moments between the busy schedule that revealed the most about both of them. Tell me about your community center dream, Harrison said one afternoon as they reviewed applications for his permanent assistant position. They had narrowed it down to 2 excellent candidates, and the decision-making process had become more collaborative than Harrison had ever experienced. Camila looked up from her notes, surprised by the question. Why do you want to know? Because it matters to you. And I'm beginning to understand that things that matter to people are usually worth understanding. She set down her pen and leaned back in her chair. When I was growing up, there was nowhere safe for kids to go after school. My neighborhood had problems: drugs, gangs, violence. Mom worked until 7 most nights, so Keisha and I were on our own from 3 to 7 every day. That must have been scary. Terrifying. We'd lock ourselves in our apartment and do homework until Mom got home. But not every kid had that option. Some had parents who worked nights or multiple jobs, or parents who weren't reliable. Harrison heard the careful way she said the last word. Like your father? Like my father, she confirmed. The thing is, most of those kids weren't bad kids. They were just kids with nowhere to go and no one looking out for them. Some of them made choices that changed their lives forever, just because they needed somewhere to belong. And you want to give them that somewhere. I want to give them options. After-school programs, job training for teenagers, literacy classes for adults, Maybe even childcare for parents who are trying to get their GED or learn new skills. Camila's eyes lit up as she talked. I want to create a place where families can grow stronger instead of just surviving. Harrison found himself genuinely moved by her vision. How long have you been planning this? Since I was 15 and watched my best friend's little brother get arrested for selling drugs. He was 12 years old, Harrison. Well, he wasn't evil, he was hungry, and someone offered him $50 to stand on a corner for an hour. Camila's voice grew quiet. He's 23 now, been in and out of prison 3 times. But I still remember him at 10, asking me to help him with his math homework because he wanted to be an engineer someday. What happened to that dream? Life happened. Poverty happened. The system failed him and he fell through the cracks. Camila wiped her eyes quickly. I can't save everyone, but maybe I can give some kids the support they need to save themselves. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. How much would something like that cost to start? I've been researching it for years. To buy and renovate a building, staff it properly, and run programs for the first year? Probably around $200,000. Camila laughed softly. Which might as well be $2 million for someone like me. What if it wasn't? What do you mean? Harrison leaned forward. What if funding wasn't the obstacle? What if you could start tomorrow? What would you need besides money? Camila stared at him. You're not serious. I'm completely serious. You've spent 2 weeks helping me become a better person. Let me help you make your dream a reality. Harrison, I can't let you. I mean, that's incredibly generous, but I couldn't accept. Why not? Because it's too much. Because it would change everything between us. Because I don't want you to think I've been nice to you because I wanted something. Harrison stood up and walked to his window, his hands clasped behind his back. Can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Camila nodded, though he couldn't see her. After my mother died, I started a scholarship fund in her name. It pays for college tuition for students who want to become teachers but can't afford school. He turned around. Do you know why I did that? To honor her memory? Partly. But mostly because I felt guilty. She always wanted me to use our family's resources to help people, and I'd gotten so caught up in building the business that I forgot about everything else. Harrison sat back down. I've been looking for meaningful ways to invest in my community for years, but I never knew how. You've just shown me. But this feels different. More personal. It is personal. And that's exactly why it matters. Harrison's voice was earnest. Camila, you've given me something I didn't even know I was missing. Let me give you something that could change not just your life, but the lives of hundreds of families. Camila was quiet for a full minute, processing what he was offering. If I said yes, and I'm not saying I am, but if I did, I'd want to do this right. Full transparency, proper oversight, clear agreements about expectations and responsibilities. Of course. And I'd want to pay you back eventually, even if it takes decades. Harrison smiled. How about this? Instead of paying me back, you promise to help at least one kid achieve a dream they thought was impossible. Deal? Despite herself, Camila felt tears in her eyes. Why are you doing this? Because for the first time in 5 years, I'm remembering what my mother taught me about using success to lift other people up instead of just accumulating more for myself. Harrison's voice was soft. And because you trusted me enough to share something that matters to you deeply. That trust deserves to be honored. You barely know me. I know you work 2 jobs and go to school at night to build a better life for your family. I know you see potential in a broken CEO that no one else bothered to look for. I know you dream about helping kids who remind you of yourself. Harrison paused. I know you're the kind of person who changes lives just by caring about them. That's enough for me. Camila was crying now, and she didn't try to hide it. This is going to sound crazy, but you're not at all what I expected when I first heard about the infamous Harrison Blake. What did you expect? A cold, arrogant businessman who cared more about profit margins than people. She laughed through her tears. Instead, I found someone who was hurt and scared and trying so hard to live up to impossible expectations that he forgot how to be kind to himself or anyone else. And now I see someone who's brave enough to change even when it's terrifying. Someone who honors his mother's memory by choosing compassion over fear. Camila met his eyes. I see someone I'm proud to know. Harrison felt something shift in his chest, a warmth he hadn't experienced in years. Camila, can I ask you something that might be inappropriate? What? Would you consider staying on as my assistant permanently? Not just until we hire someone else, but actually taking the position. Camila blinked in surprise. But I don't have the qualifications. You have all the qualifications that matter. You understand how to work with people, You see solutions instead of just problems, and you somehow make even the most stressful days manageable. Harrison's voice grew more confident. Plus, you're the only person I've ever worked with who makes me want to be better at my job instead of just getting through it. What about my night classes? My degree? We'll work around your schedule. Blake Industries has tuition reimbursement programs, and if you're working for me directly, I can make sure you have the flexibility you need to finish school. And the community center? We'll make it happen. Maybe Blake Industries' first major community investment project. Camila stared at him, overwhelmed by how much her life was changing. This feels like a dream. Good dreams should feel overwhelming sometimes. That's how you know they're big enough to matter. Can I think about it? Talk it over with my sister? Of course. Take all the time you need. Harrison paused. But Camila? Whatever you decide about the job, I want to help with the community center. That offer stands regardless. As they returned to reviewing assistant applications, both of them felt the subtle shift in their relationship. What had started as a professional arrangement was becoming something deeper, a partnership built on mutual respect and shared values. Neither of them was ready to name what was growing between them, but both could feel that their lives were changing in ways that went far beyond business. That evening, as Camila rode the bus home to her small apartment, she thought about Harrison's offer and the genuine emotion she'd seen in his eyes when he talked about honoring his mother's memory. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, dreams really could come true. Meanwhile, Harrison sat in his empty office long after everyone else had gone home, staring at a photo of his parents that he kept in his desk drawer. For the first time since his mother's death, he felt like he was living up to the person she had raised him to be. I think you'd like her, Mom, he whispered to the photo. I think you'd be proud of who I'm becoming because of her. 3 weeks later, Camila had officially accepted the position as Harrison's executive assistant, and the transformation in Blake Industries was the talk of every department. Employee satisfaction scores had improved dramatically, interdepartmental communication was smoother than it had been in years, and Harrison Blake, once feared throughout the building, was actually smiling in meetings. I've never seen anything like it, Jennifer from HR confided to Camila during lunch. People are volunteering for projects that require working directly with Mr. Blake. 6 months ago, those same assignments were treated like punishment details. Camila smiled as she picked at her salad. He's not a different person. He's just finally comfortable being himself instead of playing a role he thought he had to play. Whatever you did, it's working. The board has noticed too. I heard Thomas Morrison tell someone that Harrison seems more confident and decisive than ever. That afternoon, Camila knocked on Harrison's office door with his messages and found him standing at his window, frowning at his phone. Bad news? She asked, setting the files on his desk. Harrison looked up, and Camila was surprised to see uncertainty in his expression. Actually, good news that feels complicated. My father's business partner, Richard Sterling, wants to meet with me tomorrow. Apparently, the board has been impressed with my recent performance and they're considering expanding my authority over new investments. That's wonderful. Isn't that what you've been working toward? It is. But Harrison sat down heavily. He specifically mentioned that they want to discuss maintaining professional standards and ensuring that recent changes don't compromise the company's reputation. Camila felt her stomach drop. He's talking about me again. He's talking about us. About how close we've become, how much time we spend together, how different the office atmosphere is. Harrison ran his hands through his hair. I think they're testing me, Camila. Seeing if I'll choose the company's approval over our partnership. And what are you going to choose? Harrison met her eyes directly. You. I'm going to choose you and the way we work together and the positive changes we've made. But I'm scared it might cost me everything my father built. Camila sat down across from him, her mind racing. What if it doesn't have to be a choice? What if we can show them that our partnership makes you more effective, not less? How? The community center project. What if we present it not as a personal favor, but as Blake Industries' strategic investment in community development? Show them that the same collaborative approach that's improved office morale can also enhance the company's public image and community relationships. Harrison's eyes lit up. You want to pitch your community center to the board? I want us to pitch a comprehensive community engagement strategy that starts with the center but could expand to include other projects. Show them that the skills I bring to managing your office, understanding people, building relationships, seeing solutions are exactly what Blake Industries needs to grow its community presence. That's brilliant. But are you ready for that level of scrutiny? Board meetings can be intense, and if they're already questioning our working relationship, Let them question it. Let them see exactly what our partnership produces. Camila leaned forward, her voice growing stronger. Harrison, you've spent years trying to prove you're worthy of your father's legacy by becoming someone you're not. What if the best way to honor that legacy is by becoming the leader you actually are? And who am I, exactly? You're someone who inspires loyalty through respect instead of fear. Someone who sees potential in people and invests in helping them succeed. Someone who understands that business success and human decency aren't mutually exclusive. Camila's voice grew softer. You're your mother's son as much as your father's. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. If we do this, if we present to the board together, there's no going back. They'll either accept this new approach or they'll find ways to force me out. And if they force you out? Then I'll have lost everything. No, Camila said firmly. If they force you out for becoming a better leader and a better person, then you'll have learned that their approval was never worth having in the first place. Harrison stared at her, amazed by her strength and clarity. How are you not afraid? Who says I'm not afraid? I'm terrified. But I'm more afraid of what happens if we let other people's fears and prejudices dictate how we live our lives. Camila stood up. Besides, I have something they don't. What's that? I have complete faith in the person you're becoming. And I know that person is capable of handling whatever comes next. Harrison felt something shift inside him, a confidence he hadn't experienced since before his father's death. Okay, let's do it. Let's show them what we can accomplish together. Really? Really? But Camila? Harrison stood up and walked around his desk. I need you to know something before we take this step. What? Working with you these past few weeks has been the best part of my life in years. You've helped me remember who I wanted to be, and you've made me believe that person is worth being. Harrison's voice was serious but warm. Whatever happens with the board, whatever challenges we face, I want you to know that knowing you has changed me in ways I didn't think were possible anymore. Camila felt her breath catch. Harrison. I'm not saying this to complicate things or to put pressure on our working relationship. I just needed you to know that you matter to me. More than I probably should admit, and definitely more than is strictly professional. They stood looking at each other for a moment, both aware that something fundamental had shifted between them. The professional partnership had deepened into something neither of them had expected but both had been hoping for. You matter to me too, Camila said quietly. More than I planned for, more than I probably should allow. But I can't imagine my life without you in it anymore. So what do we do with that? Camila smiled. We be honest about it. With each other, with the board, with anyone who questions whether people can care about each other and still maintain professional excellence. And if they don't approve? Then we'll figure out what comes next together. Harrison reached out and took her hand, a gesture that felt both natural and monumental. Together? Together. As they stood there, hands clasped, both of them felt the certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as partners in every sense of the word. The scared, angry man who had thrown a coffee mug 3 weeks ago was gone, replaced by someone ready to fight for what mattered most. And what mattered most was standing right in front of him, willing to face an uncertain future with courage and grace. So, Camila said, breaking the emotional intensity with a practical question, when do we start preparing for this board presentation? Harrison laughed, the sound lighter and more genuine than Camila had ever heard from him. How about right now? We have a community to serve and some minds to change. Now you're talking like the CEO I knew you could be. The Blake Industries boardroom felt different on Thursday morning. Harrison had arrived early to set up their presentation materials, but instead of the usual pre-meeting anxiety that made his hands shake and his voice tight, he felt calm and focused. Camila's presence beside him as they arranged charts and financial projections felt like an anchor, steadying him in ways he was still learning to appreciate. Remember, Camila said quietly as board members began filing in, we're not asking for permission to be who we are. We're showing them who we are and what that can accomplish. Harrison nodded, straightening his tie. How do you feel? Nervous, excited, ready? She smiled at him. You? Like I'm about to introduce my family to the most important people in my professional life, Harrison said and then paused, surprised by his own words. Is that what I am? Family? Before Harrison could answer, Richard Sterling entered the room, followed by the other 7 board members. Sterling was exactly what Central Casting would order for an intimidating business executive, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, with the kind of presence that commanded attention and inspired either respect or fear, depending on which side of his approval you found yourself. Harrison, Sterling said with a nod, then turned his gaze to Camila. And you must be Ms. Washington. I've heard quite a bit about you. Mr. Sterling, board members, thank you for agreeing to hear our presentation. Camila's voice was steady and professional, betraying none of the nerves Harrison knew she must be feeling. Yes, well, we're all quite curious about this community engagement initiative. Sterling took his seat at the head of the table. Harrison, you've been rather secretive about the details. Because I wanted you to see the complete vision, not just pieces of it, Harrison said, moving to the front of the room. What Camila and I have developed isn't just a single project, it's a comprehensive approach to community investment that we believe will strengthen Blake Industries' position while making a meaningful impact on the neighborhoods where our employees live and work. For the next 30 minutes, they presented their plan with the kind of seamless collaboration that only comes from genuine partnership. Harrison handled the financial projections and business case while Camila presented the community needs assessment and program details. They moved through their materials like dancers who had been practicing together for years, each one building on what the other had said, anticipating questions, and supporting each other's points with additional data and insights. The community center was just the beginning. They had outlined a 5-year plan that included job training partnerships with local schools, small business development loans, and employee volunteer programs that would allow Blake Industries staff to contribute their skills to community projects. The return on investment, Harrison concluded, isn't just measured in dollars, though we project significant tax benefits and positive publicity value. It's measured in employee retention, community goodwill, and the kind of reputation that attracts the best talent and most loyal customers. When they finished, the boardroom was quiet for a moment. Then Sterling leaned back in his chair and studied them both. Impressive presentation. Clearly you've both invested significant time and thought into this proposal. His tone was neutral, giving nothing away. I have to say, Harrison, your presentation style has evolved considerably since your last board review. Thank you, sir. Ms. Washington, your research is thorough and your understanding of community needs is clearly informed by personal experience. This isn't just theoretical for you, is it? No, sir. I grew up in the neighborhood where we want to build the first center. I've seen firsthand what happens when kids don't have safe, supportive places to go after school, and I've also seen what's possible when they do. Board member Patricia Reeves spoke up. The financial projections are sound, and the tax benefits alone would justify the initial investment. But I'm curious about the management structure. Who would oversee day-to-day operations? Initially I would, Camila said. I'm completing my business degree next semester, and I've spent 3 years researching best practices for community programs. Harrison and I have discussed a transition plan where I would manage the community engagement division while continuing to serve as his executive assistant until we can hire additional staff. You're proposing to do both jobs? Asked board member James Chin. For the first year, yes. After that, Blake Industries would need to decide whether to expand the community engagement division or transition it to a separate nonprofit organization with ongoing corporate support. Sterling made a note, then looked up. Harrison, I have to ask the question that's on everyone's mind. This is clearly a project that matters personally to Ms. Washington. Are you confident that your judgment isn't being influenced by your personal relationship with her? The room went silent. Harrison felt Camila tense beside him, but when he glanced at her, she gave him a small nod of encouragement. Mr. Sterling, I'm not going to pretend that Camila and I haven't developed a close working relationship that goes beyond typical professional boundaries. We have. But that relationship is built on mutual respect, shared values, and a collaborative approach that has improved every aspect of how I do my job. Harrison stepped forward. You mentioned that you've noticed changes in my leadership style. Those changes are directly related to what I've learned from working with Camila. She's taught me that treating people with respect and investing in their success doesn't make you weak, it makes you more effective. And you believe that effectiveness extends to this community investment proposal? I believe that effectiveness extends to everything we do. The same principles that have improved office morale and interdepartmental cooperation will make Blake Industries a stronger community partner and a more attractive company for top talent. Sterling looked around the table at the other board members, some kind of silent communication passing between them. The proposal is sound, he said finally. The financial case is compelling, the community impact is clearly needed, and the potential benefits to Blake Industries are significant. Harrison felt his heart racing but kept his expression neutral. However, Sterling continued, we need to address the elephant in the room. Harrison, your father built this company on the principle that personal relationships should never compromise professional judgment. Are you prepared to maintain appropriate boundaries as this project moves forward? With respect, Mr. Sterling, My father also built this company on the principle that success should be used to strengthen the community, not just accumulate wealth. This project honors both of those values. That's not what I asked. Harrison looked at Camila, then back at the board. Mr. Sterling, if you're asking whether I can maintain professional standards while working closely with someone I care about, the answer is yes. If you're asking whether I'm willing to pretend that caring about my colleagues makes me less effective as a leader, the answer is no. The silence that followed felt endless. Finally, Sterling smiled, the first genuine smile Harrison had seen from him in years. Your mother would have given the exact same answer, he said quietly. She never let anyone convince her that compassion was incompatible with good business. Harrison felt his breath catch. Sir? Patricia, what was the vote? Sterling asked. 7 in favor, 1 abstention, Patricia replied. Congratulations, Ms. Washington. Blake Industries is officially entering the community engagement business, with you as our first division head. Camila felt tears spring to her eyes. Thank you, all of you. I promise you won't regret this decision. See that we don't, Sterling said, but his tone was warm. Harrison, I want monthly reports on the project's progress, and I want to see continued evidence that this venture is strengthening rather than distracting from your other responsibilities. You'll have them, sir. As the board members filed out, Sterling lingered. Harrison, a word of advice from someone who worked with your father for 20 years? Of course. He was a brilliant businessman, but he made one critical error. He thought he had to choose between loving people and leading them effectively. Your mother knew better. Sterling glanced at Camila, who was gathering their presentation materials. Don't make his mistake. After Sterling left, Harrison and Camila stood alone in the boardroom, both of them processing what had just happened. We did it, Camila said finally. We did it, Harrison agreed. I can't believe they said yes. I can't believe this is actually happening. Harrison moved closer to her. Believe it? You're about to change hundreds of lives, and Blake Industries is going to be better because of it. We're going to change hundreds of lives, Camila corrected. This is our project, Harrison. Our vision. Our partnership, Harrison said, and the word carried weight beyond professional collaboration. Our partnership, Camila agreed, and they both knew they were talking about much more than business. 2 months into the community center project, Blake Industries was getting attention from local media, community leaders, and business publications. The positive coverage was everything Harrison and Camila had hoped for: stories about corporate responsibility, innovative community partnerships, and the transformation of a company once known for its cold efficiency into a model of engaged leadership. Harrison should have been celebrating. Instead, he was sitting in his office at 7 p.m., staring at a certified letter that had arrived that afternoon, feeling like the walls were closing in around him. You're still here, Camila said, appearing in his doorway with 2 cups of coffee. I thought you might need caffeine for whatever's been bothering you all day. Harrison looked up at her, his expression tense and worried. Sit down. Please. Camila set the coffee on his desk and took her usual chair, immediately concerned by his tone. What's wrong? Harrison held up the letter. This is from the law firm that handles my family's estate and trust arrangements. It seems my father's will included some provisions I wasn't fully aware of. What kind of provisions? The kind that give certain board members the authority to remove me as CEO if they determine that I'm acting in ways that compromise the company's reputation or financial stability. Harrison's voice was carefully controlled, but Camila could hear the anger and fear underneath. Who has that authority? Richard Sterling primarily, along with 2 other board members who were my father's closest friends. Harrison set the letter down and rubbed his temples. Apparently, there have been some concerns raised about my recent decision-making. Camila felt ice in her stomach. Concerns about what, specifically? About my judgment being compromised by personal relationships. About whether I'm prioritizing social causes over profit margins. About whether the company's reputation might be damaged by perceptions of impropriety in my management style. They're talking about us. They're talking about us? Harrison confirmed. Sterling called me this afternoon. He wanted to give me a friendly warning that some investors are uncomfortable with how visible you've become in company operations. Camila stood up and began pacing, her mind racing. What exactly did he say? That several major investors have expressed concerns about the appropriateness of my relationship with my assistant. That some of our clients have made comments about the unusual level of authority I've given to someone without traditional credentials. That the board is beginning to question whether my personal feelings are affecting my professional judgment. And what did you tell him? Harrison's jaw tightened. I told him that you're the most qualified person I've ever worked with, that our results speak for themselves, and that any concerns about our professional relationship are unfounded and frankly insulting. How did he respond to that? He said that perception matters as much as reality in business, and that I need to consider whether my loyalty to you is worth risking everything my father built. Camila stopped pacing and turned to face him. And what's your answer to that question? Harrison met her eyes directly. My answer is that what my father built was a successful company, but what we're building together is something better. A company that succeeds because it values people, not in spite of it. But I'm scared, Camila. I'm scared that they'll find a way to force me out, and then everything we've worked for will be dismantled by whoever replaces me. Camila sat back down, her expression serious. Harrison, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Anything. If staying with Blake Industries means choosing between me and the company, what would you do? Harrison was quiet for a long moment. 6 months ago, I would have chosen the company without hesitation. It was all I had, all I thought I was worth. And now? Now I know that a company is just buildings and bank accounts without the people who make it matter. And you're the person who's helped me understand what it means to make something matter. That's not really an answer to my question. Harrison stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the city lights. The honest answer is that I can't imagine my life without you in it. Professional partnership, personal relationship, whatever we want to call what's growing between us, I can't go back to who I was before I knew you. Even if it costs you Blake Industries? Even if it costs me Blake Industries. Harrison turned back to her. But I don't want it to come to that. I want to find a way to keep both the company and you. Camila was quiet for a moment, processing his words and the implications of what they were facing. What if there was a way to remove their ammunition entirely? She said finally. What do you mean? What if I stepped back from my role as your assistant? Focused entirely on the community engagement division, reported to the board directly instead of through you. Harrison's expression immediately became alarmed. No, absolutely not. I won't let them force you out of our partnership because of their narrow-minded assumptions. It's not about forcing me out. It's about restructuring our professional relationship so that no one can question your judgment or my qualifications. But we work so well together. The way we collaborate, the way we balance each other's strengths, wouldn't change. We'd still be working on the same projects, still be partners in the community engagement initiatives. We just wouldn't have the direct reporting relationship that's making people uncomfortable. Harrison sat back down, considering her proposal. You'd be willing to do that? I'd be willing to do whatever it takes to protect what we've built together. Both professionally and personally. What about personally? Harrison asked quietly. If we change our professional relationship, what happens to us? Camila smiled for the first time since the conversation began. Harrison, what's happening between us isn't dependent on our job titles or reporting structures. It's bigger than that. Is it? Do you care about me because I'm your assistant, or do you care about me because I'm me? Because you're you. Completely, entirely because you're you. Then changing our professional relationship doesn't change the personal one. If anything, it might make it clearer that what we feel for each other is real, not just a result of working closely together. Harrison reached across his desk and took her hand. Are you sure about this? You've worked so hard to get where you are. Where I am is in partnership with you, working on projects that matter, building something meaningful together. That doesn't change just because my business card might say something different. The board would have to approve the restructuring. Then we'll present them with a proposal that makes it clear this is a strategic decision, not a response to pressure. We'll show them that creating an independent community engagement division with direct board oversight is the best way to ensure the program's success. Harrison squeezed her hand. You're amazing, you know that? I'm practical. And I'm not about to let small-minded people destroy something beautiful because they can't imagine that men and women can work together as equals. What if this doesn't work? What if they find other reasons to create problems for us? Camila leaned forward, her voice strong and certain. Then we'll face whatever comes next together. But Harrison, I'm not going anywhere. Whatever they do, whatever challenges we face, I'm in this with you for the long haul. Promise? Promise? As they sat there, hands clasped across his desk, both of them felt the weight of the decision they were making. They were choosing each other over the easy path, choosing to fight for their partnership rather than retreat from the challenges. It was scary and uncertain, but it was also the most honest thing either of them had ever done. So, Harrison said finally, how do we restructure Blake Industries to make room for what we're building together? We start by drafting a proposal that shows them exactly how powerful we are when we're working as partners instead of boss and employee. And then we prove that love and success aren't mutually exclusive. That caring about people makes you stronger, not weaker. That the best business decisions come from the heart as much as the head. Harrison smiled, feeling his confidence return. When you put it like that, how can we lose? We can't, Camila said firmly. Because we're not just fighting for our jobs or our company. We're fighting for the right to be who we really are together. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for Friday afternoon, just 3 days after Harrison and Camila had submitted their restructuring proposal. The speed of the response told them everything they needed to know about how seriously the board was taking the situation. Harrison had barely slept the night before, not because he was afraid of losing his position, but because he was finally ready to fight for it on his own terms. He arrived at the office early to find Camila already there, looking composed and professional in a navy blue suit that conveyed both competence and confidence. "How are you feeling?" she asked, handing him his coffee. "Like I'm about to find out who I really am," Harrison replied. "You? Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." At 2 p.m. they walked into the boardroom together. The atmosphere was tense, with all 9 board members present and several looking distinctly uncomfortable. Richard Sterling sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. "Harrison, Ms. Washington, thank you for joining us on short notice." Sterling's tone was formal, giving nothing away. "We've reviewed your proposal for restructuring the Community Engagement Division, and we have some questions." "Of course," Harrison said, taking his seat. Camila sat beside him, her notepad ready. Board member Patricia Reeves spoke first. "This restructuring would essentially remove Ms. Washington from your direct supervision and make her division head with independent authority. Can you explain the business rationale for this change?" "The Community Engagement Division has grown beyond what we initially projected," Harrison began. "The success of the first community center has generated requests for expansion into 3 additional neighborhoods. We have partnerships pending with 2 local colleges and inquiries from 5 other corporations who want to model similar programs. That level of growth requires dedicated leadership," Camila added. "As long as community engagement is a secondary responsibility for me, we can't scale effectively or give the program the attention it deserves." Sterling leaned forward. "Ms. Washington, this restructuring would make you the youngest division head in Blake Industries history, and you'd be managing a multimillion-dollar budget without a completed business degree. Are you confident you're ready for that level of responsibility?" "Mr. Sterling, I've been managing complex projects and working with community leaders since I was 16 years old. I may not have traditional corporate credentials, but I have something more valuable: deep understanding of the communities we're serving and proven results in building programs that actually work." "And if this restructuring is approved, what would be your first priority?" Camila straightened in her chair. "Hiring a qualified assistant for Mr. Blake. Someone with traditional executive assistant credentials who can handle the administrative aspects of his role while he focuses on strategic leadership." Harrison looked at her in surprise. They hadn't discussed this detail. "You see that as necessary?" asked board member James Chen. "I see it as responsible," Camila replied. "Mr. Blake needs support from someone whose primary focus is managing his schedule and communications. I've been splitting my attention between those duties and developing community programs. Both deserve dedicated focus." Sterling made a note, then looked directly at Harrison. "And you support this decision to essentially replace Ms. Washington as your assistant?" Harrison felt the weight of the moment. This was the choice between playing it safe and being honest about what mattered to him. "Mr. Sterling, I support any decision that allows Camila to use her talents where they'll have the greatest impact. But I need to be clear about something." He stood up, his voice growing stronger. "For the past 4 months, Blake Industries has seen record employee satisfaction, improved interdepartmental cooperation, successful community partnerships, and positive media coverage that money can't buy. Those results aren't accidents, and they're not despite my relationship with Camila. They're because of it." Sterling's expression remained neutral. "Continue." "You've asked me to consider whether my personal feelings are affecting my professional judgment, and the answer is yes, they are. But not in the way you think." Harrison looked around the table. "My personal respect for Camila has made me a better leader. My personal investment in her success has taught me how to invest in everyone's success. My personal commitment to our partnership has shown me what it means to build something meaningful instead of just managing something profitable." The room was completely silent. 6 months ago, I was going through assistance like disposable products, creating a toxic work environment, and treating this company like my personal kingdom where everyone else was just there to serve my ego. Harrison's voice grew more passionate. Today, I'm part of a team that's not only more profitable but actually makes a positive difference in people's lives. And you attribute that change to your relationship with Ms. Washington? Asked Patricia Reeves. I attribute that change to finally understanding what my mother tried to teach me about leadership, that the best leaders don't demand respect, they earn it. They don't build walls to protect themselves, they build bridges to connect with others. They don't see employees as resources to be managed, they see them as partners to be empowered. Harrison turned to look at Camila, who was watching him with tears in her eyes. Camila didn't just become my assistant and then my partner in community engagement. She became my teacher, my collaborator, and yes, someone I care about deeply. Not because we work together, but because of who she is, someone who sees potential where others see problems, someone who builds hope where others accept defeat, someone who makes everyone around her better just by believing they can be. He turned back to the board. So if you're asking whether I can maintain professional boundaries while caring about my colleagues, the answer is yes, we've been doing it successfully for months. If you're asking whether I'm willing to pretend that caring about people makes me a weaker leader, the answer is absolutely not. Sterling was quiet for a long moment, studying Harrison's face. And if the board decides that this restructuring is not in the company's best interests? Then you'll have my resignation by the end of the day, Harrison said without hesitation. Because any company that punishes leaders for treating people with respect and achieving better results is not a company I want to be associated with. Gasps echoed around the table. Camila reached out and touched Harrison's hand, giving him strength. Mr. Blake, Sterling said carefully, are you giving the board an ultimatum? No, sir. I'm giving you a choice. You can approve this restructuring and continue to benefit from the partnership that has made Blake Industries more successful and more respected than it's been in years. Or you can reject it, and I'll step aside so you can find someone who's willing to go back to the old way of doing business. And Ms. Washington? Would you also resign? Camila stood up beside Harrison. Mr. Sterling, I would do whatever is necessary to continue the work we've started in the community. If that means working with Blake Industries under new leadership, I'm willing to try. But I won't work for any organization that punishes people for caring about each other and achieving excellent results. So you would both potentially walk away from everything you've built here? We would walk away from the titles and the paychecks, Harrison said. But what we've actually built, the partnerships, the trust, the vision for what business can be when it serves people instead of just profit, that goes with us wherever we go. Sterling looked around the table at the other board members, and again that silent communication passed between them. The board will need time to deliberate, he said finally. We'll reconvene at 4 p.m. for our decision. As the board members filed out, Harrison and Camila remained in the conference room, both of them processing what had just happened. I can't believe you were willing to resign, Camila said quietly. I can't believe it took me this long to realize that some things are more important than job security, Harrison replied. How do you feel? Proud of you. Scared for us. But mostly certain that we did the right thing. Even if it costs us everything? Harrison, look at me. Camila turned to face him fully. 6 months ago you were miserable, isolated, and slowly destroying yourself trying to live up to someone else's expectations. Today you stood in front of the most powerful people in your professional life and defended not just our partnership, but your right to be the person you actually are. And regardless of what they decide, you're already successful in the ways that matter most. You're a leader people respect instead of fear. You're making a difference in your community. You're living according to your values instead of just your fears. Harrison reached for her hands. What about you? Are you ready for whatever comes next? I'm ready for anything as long as we face it together. At exactly 4 p.m. they returned to the boardroom. The board members were already seated, and Sterling's expression was still unreadable. Harrison, Ms. Washington, the board has reached a decision. Harrison felt Camila's hand slip into his under the table. After considerable discussion, we have voted to approve the restructuring proposal. Effective immediately, Ms. Washington will be promoted to Director of Community Engagement, with full divisional authority and direct board reporting. Harrison felt the tension leave his shoulders. However, Sterling continued, this decision comes with conditions. We expect monthly progress reports, quarterly financial reviews, and annual assessments of the division's impact and sustainability. Any concerns about performance or professional conduct will be addressed immediately. Understood, Camila said. Additionally, Harrison, The board has voted to expand your role to include oversight of all corporate social responsibility initiatives. Ms. Washington's division will be the first of what we hope will become a comprehensive approach to community engagement. Harrison stared at Sterling. You're promoting both of us? Sterling smiled, the second genuine smile Harrison had seen from him in months. We're recognizing that the partnership you've built has made Blake Industries more successful, more respected, and more attractive to both employees and clients. It would be foolish to break up a team that's delivering those kinds of results. But the concerns about our relationship are based on outdated assumptions about how professional partnerships work, Patricia Reeves interjected. Your results speak for themselves. Employee satisfaction is up 30%, community engagement has generated over $2 million in positive publicity value, and client retention is at an all-time high. More importantly, Sterling added, you've both demonstrated that you can maintain professional excellence while genuinely caring about each other's success. That's not a liability, it's exactly the kind of leadership this company needs. As the meeting concluded and board members offered their congratulations, Harrison and Camila found themselves alone in the conference room once again. We did it, Camila said, still processing what had happened. We did it, Harrison agreed. But more than that, we proved something important. What's that? That being authentic doesn't make you weak. That caring about people doesn't compromise your judgment. That the best partnerships are built on mutual respect and shared values. Camila smiled. And that sometimes the biggest risks lead to the best rewards. Speaking of risks, Harrison said, his voice growing softer, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said months ago. What? I'm in love with you, Camila. Not just grateful for your partnership, not just impressed by your abilities, but genuinely, completely in love with who you are. Camila felt her breath catch. Harrison. I know this complicates everything. I know we have new roles to navigate and professional boundaries to maintain. But I couldn't let this day end without telling you how I feel. You want to know something? Camila said, stepping closer to him. What? I've been in love with you since the day you apologized to Jessica and meant it. Since the day you chose to change instead of staying safe. Since the day you proved that the person I saw beneath all that anger and fear was real. Harrison reached up and touched her face gently. So what do we do now? Now we figure out how to build a life together that's as beautiful as the partnership we've already created. Together? Always together. As they stood there in the Blake Industries boardroom where so much of their professional partnership had been forged, both of them knew that they were about to begin the most important collaboration of their lives. 6 months later, the Blake Industries Community Engagement Division occupied an entire floor of the downtown headquarters, with Camila leading a team of 12 staff members and overseeing programs in 8 neighborhoods. The original community center had become a model that corporations and nonprofits from across the country were studying and replicating. Harrison stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, watching the late afternoon sun reflect off the building across the street. His new assistant, Robert Martinez, was efficient and professional, but Harrison found himself missing the easy collaboration he'd shared with Camila. Not because Robert wasn't competent, he was excellent, but because what Harrison and Camila had built together was irreplaceable. Mr. Blake. Robert appeared in the doorway. Ms. Washington is here for your 5 p.m. meeting. Send her in, please. And Robert? You can head home after this. I know you have evening classes tonight. Thank you, sir. Have a good weekend. Camila entered Harrison's office carrying a folder and wearing the kind of smile that still made his heart skip beats even after months of seeing it regularly. How did the site visit go? Harrison asked, pulling her into a brief hug that had become their standard greeting when they were alone in his office. Better than we hoped. The new location in Riverside is perfect, big enough for after-school programs, adult education classes, and a community kitchen. The neighborhood association is thrilled, and we have 3 local businesses ready to sponsor programs. And the timeline? If we get board approval next week, we can have it operational by January. Camila set her folder on his desk and sat in her familiar chair. But that's not why I asked for this meeting. Harrison raised an eyebrow. Oh. I have something to show you. Camila opened her folder and pulled out a newspaper clipping. Page 1 of the business section, this morning's edition. Harrison took the clipping and read the headline aloud, Blake Industries named Corporate Community Partner of the Year. His eyes widened as he scanned the article. This is incredible, Camila. They're calling our programs the gold standard for corporate social responsibility. Keep reading. Harrison continued down the page until he reached a paragraph that made him look up at Camila in amazement. They want to feature us in a case study for Harvard Business School? Gets better. 3 companies have reached out about licensing our program model. 2 universities want to create partnerships with our job training initiatives. And the mayor's office wants to discuss expanding our programs citywide. Harrison set down the article and shook his head in wonder. When I think about where we were a year ago. When you think about where you were a year ago, Camila corrected gently. Angry, isolated, throwing coffee mugs at walls. And now? Now you're the CEO who turned around not just a company's reputation, but its entire approach to doing business. You're the leader other executives call for advice on employee engagement and community partnerships. Harrison walked around his desk and sat on the edge, facing her. We did that. Together. We did that together, Camila agreed. But you made the choice to change. You took the risk of being vulnerable. You chose partnership over control. I chose you over everything else that felt safe. Camila stood up and moved closer to him. And how's that working out for you? Better than I ever imagined possible, Harrison said, reaching for her hands. But I want more. More what? More of everything. More partnership, more collaboration, more time together outside these offices. Harrison's voice grew serious. More than stolen moments between meetings and professional boundaries that keep us from being everything we could be to each other. Camila's heart started racing. What are you saying? Instead of answering with words, Harrison reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. I'm saying that I want to wake up every morning knowing we're building something beautiful together. I want to face every challenge as a team. I want to celebrate every success as partners. He opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant diamond ring. I'm saying that I love you, Camila Washington, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you every single day. Camila stared at the ring, then at Harrison's face, seeing all the love and hope and vulnerability he was offering her. Are you asking me to marry you? I'm asking you to be my partner in everything. My wife, my collaborator, my best friend, my greatest adventure. Harrison's voice was steady but his hands were shaking slightly. I'm asking you to build a life with me that's as meaningful as the work we've created together. Tears filled Camila's eyes as she thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment, from that first night when she challenged his anger to today, when they were being recognized as leaders in corporate social responsibility. You know this won't be simple, she said softly. There will always be people who question whether we can maintain professional boundaries while being married. Let them question it. We'll prove them wrong the same way we've been proving them wrong for months. And if they don't approve? Then we'll build something even better somewhere else. Together. Camila looked at the man who had transformed from a broken, angry executive into someone who led with both strength and compassion, someone who had learned to see potential where others saw problems, someone who had chosen love over fear at every important crossroads. Yes, she said, laughing through her tears. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll be your partner in everything. Yes to all of it. Harrison slipped the ring onto her finger with hands that were no longer shaking, then pulled her into a kiss that felt like a promise and a celebration and a beginning all at once. When they broke apart, Camila was smiling so widely her cheeks hurt. So what now? She asked. Now we plan a wedding, continue changing the world through community engagement, and prove that the best business partnerships really can become the most beautiful personal ones. And if people say we're crazy for mixing business with pleasure? Then we'll show them our employee satisfaction scores, our community impact data, and our quarterly profits, and ask them how crazy success really looks. Camila laughed. I love you, Harrison Blake. I love you too, Camila Washington. Soon to be Camila Blake. Actually, Camila said with a mischievous smile, I was thinking more like Camila Washington Blake. Or maybe Harrison Washington Blake. I've gotten pretty attached to my name over the years. Harrison threw back his head and laughed, the sound echoing through his office and carrying all the joy and freedom and possibility that had defined their relationship from the very beginning. Anything you want, he said. As long as we're building it together. Outside Harrison's office windows, the sun was setting over the city, casting golden light across the buildings where thousands of people were finishing their workdays and heading home to their families. In neighborhoods across the city, community centers funded by Blake Industries were hosting evening programs that would help children with homework, teach adults new job skills, and provide safe spaces for families to gather and grow. It was the kind of legacy that Harrison's mother would have been proud of, the kind of impact that honored both his father's business acumen and his mother's compassionate heart. But more than that, it was proof that sometimes the most important changes begin with a single person having the courage to tell someone powerful, you're the problem, and that someone powerful having the wisdom to listen. As Harrison and Camila stood together in his office, planning their future and celebrating their engagement, both of them knew that their greatest adventure was just beginning. They had learned that love and success weren't mutually exclusive, that the best partnerships were built on mutual respect and shared dreams, and that sometimes the most beautiful things in life come from taking the biggest risks. 6 months later, they would be married in a ceremony held at the original community center, surrounded by employees, community members, and the board of directors who had come to see their partnership as the model for what business leadership could be in the 21st century. But that evening, as they sat in Harrison's office making plans and dreaming about the future, they were simply two people who had found in each other the missing piece that made everything else make sense. "Ready to go home?" Harrison asked as the sun disappeared behind the downtown skyline. "Ready to go home," Camila agreed, taking his hand. And as they walked out of Blake Industries together, both of them knew that home wasn't a place, it was the life they were building together. One day at a time, one decision at a time, one act of love and courage at a time. The scared, angry man who had thrown a coffee mug in frustration was gone, replaced by someone who had learned that the greatest strength comes from opening your heart to the people who help you become your best self. And the cleaning lady who had dared to challenge a billionaire CEO had become a respected leader in her own right, proving that courage and compassion can change not just individual lives, but entire organizations and communities. Together, they were proof that sometimes the most unlikely partnerships become the most beautiful love stories, and that the best way to change the world is to start by changing yourself. Dear readers, thank you so much for following Harrison and Camila's journey from conflict to collaboration to love. This story was inspired by the belief that everyone deserves a chance to grow and change, and that the most powerful transformations happen when we're brave enough to be vulnerable with each other. What did you think about Harrison's transformation from an angry, isolated CEO to a compassionate leader? Do you believe that people can really change as dramatically as he did? And what about Camila's courage in confronting someone so powerful? Have you ever had to stand up to authority in your own life? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Share your own stories about workplace relationships, personal growth, or times when someone challenged you to become better than you thought possible.